All right. Hello and welcome to my second month MIA update for Korean. I brought my coffee this time, which I'm going to be drinking. It's a little late in the day. It's 12:30, so good afternoon. Normally I don't like to drink coffee after 10, especially how recently I've been trying to get to bed earlier. And if I drink coffee after 10, it for me, I get amped up way longer than the 5 or 6 hours that coffee is supposed to be affecting you. But you know, it's gonna help me get through the video. And some really good coffee. It's Holler Mountain by Stumptown in Portland, Oregon. I'm not a huge coffee snob, but I do really love some good coffee, and this is good coffee. So yeah, I have been doing the MIA shtick for 2 months now, and that's in addition to the 2 months of sort of traditional study I did before. And most of that was just kind of figuring out my footing and getting Hangul read and understood, and kind of bouncing around trying to look for better ways. So 2 months before MIA, and then in May, early May, I started MIA, and it's almost exactly 2 months now. So here's the update. Things are going pretty well. I think I've had enough experience with MIA to get past the sort of leap of faith in some ways. There is a leap of faith when you start this. Like, it's a little opposite to what you hear a lot of other places. The lack of output, for one. The lack of focus on grammar, although that is a good part of my daily practice, but it's 10 minutes and some review of some sentences that I've known. And I was just looking this morning at the video that Matt made about acquisition versus learning, and I think that touches on the big reason why I hooked on to this idea of only just touching on grammar. I mean, he mentions that you should just do it lightly, but this kind of touches it really closely. And I've seen some other people in the community talk about wanting to do grammar a lot more, and I get that. But I think so far it's really working for me to just touch it lightly and get lots of input, because I end up deciphering how that's going to sound, how that's going to come up in a sentence, just through immersion. So eventually, as I get through the Talk to Me in Korean stuff, I am sure I will, I'll need to cover some things that I didn't really dive too deeply into. But I'm hesitant to do deep dive into grammar too early, because I think acquisition versus learning is really what's at play here. I can learn and study stuff and do homework, that's in my brain, that's what it categorizes under, is grammar study, repeating sentences over and over again so that you drill it into yourself. That's like homework. I've never liked homework. I succeeded okay, I didn't overly succeed, but I got through high school just by listening to everything in class that I didn't know, and doing well on the tests, just paying attention. And I hated homework. Homework sucked. To me, it was a big waste of time. And now that I think about it, it makes sense why I was so drawn to the MIA thing. You just listen a lot, and you don't do homework. You just do a little bit of reminder review with Anki. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that, and I'm still early, but I think I've seen enough in my own practice to see how that works a little bit. I've been getting a taste of it. I've begun to see sort of phrases that come together, and I understand the majority of the words, and I'm getting that sort of feeling. It's like when you have something on the tip of your tongue and you can't quite say it. That's what the understanding is starting to feel like, and that's actually a huge difference to what it used to feel like, because early on it's just all gibberish, and then you have moments of insight where you realize that you know something. It's that sort of realizing that that's the acquisition. It's unconscious, and realizing that something is on the tip of your tongue, or in this case the tip of your understanding. It's like right there, and it's sort of starting to come together. So I've seen that happen. I've also seen parts of that turn into, just click into understanding. And so that's why I'm still continuing to kind of go with this philosophy, trust in the process, and not try to over-engineer everything. I don't like to do that in my life in general, and I feel like this process, it really does benefit just from that mass input. That's what it's all about. But as with all journeys, it's not all peaches and cream. You know what I mean? There have been some rough times over the past 2 months. A little bit more in this past month than before, and it's nothing that you can't get across. It's nothing that's too big of a hurdle that you can't get over. And in my case, I was reaching a point where I towards the beginning of this month, I stopped working 2 jobs, which I had been doing for 6 months, and that was 6 or 7 days a week. So sometimes, I was, during a lot of this COVID-19 stuff, I work in a grocery store, and so we needed a lot of help. I was working 7 days a week for a few weeks straight. Maybe I'd have a day off, and then I work for a few more weeks with no days off. So I thought that I was going to have a lot of extra time, and I have, but I also found out that I was just almost to the point of like burnout. So I didn't transition as easily into utilizing all of my free time for MIA as I wanted. But I have been able to sort of kind of get a hold on other things in my life that I needed to, a little bit of, organizing my room and, the kitchen and stuff like that. And, so one of the other things is like, there were a couple of days where I got busy with things and I didn't add any anki cards. Like I think there was a couple of days where I added 1. I still did all my reps, but there were I think 3 days this month where I added either no cards or like 4 cards. So it's on the large scale of things, it's not a big deal, and I'm not worried about it. And it was kind of nice to have that break, but it has been a little bit difficult. And the other struggle that I've had is actually with my sleep. I've been feeling really kind of juiced up, like jazzed over all of this Korean listening. So it's like after I get off work, I want to come home and I I've been checking the Discord way too much. I'm sure some other people feel the same way, but I've also been trying to like keep it on topic there. But so I go in and do that, and I've been working on all these side projects. I made the video, the starter guide video, and then there were some frequency list things that I was helping with, and generally just kind of talking about all of these different ideas, and so then I'd still want to get my immersion in, and I'd want to add my cards, and then I would be thinking, okay, well, I just want to watch this one extra episode so I can make the condensed audio so I can put it on my phone for work. Next thing I know, it's 3 a.m. and I'm still just up and going. I work at 12 in the morning, or not 12, 10 in the morning, so it's not a huge deal to be staying up till 3, but I don't want to. I'd rather go to bed at like 11, get up at 7, have hours of time for immersion. That's my goal. And if I had a goal, it would be that. But my goal is to isn't like a long-term thing. It's like my goal is to fix my schedule today, and fix my schedule tomorrow, and fix my schedule the next day, so I can actually get up in the morning. And because I love doing anki in the morning, and I like to do a bit of immersion in the morning too. Really kind of helps get things going, and being able to have the time to meditate. It's something that I also started slipping up on, and I don't know. I'm the kind of person where it starts to unravel a little bit, and if I let up on one of these habits that I have, on one of these parts of my system, it's like everything gets a little bit more crazy. So I like to keep that under control, and without the meditation, it's like I end up starting to get a little too hyper focused on things while not attending to other things. For some reason, meditation helps me to be able to switch between necessary tasks a little bit more consciously. So staying up too late, that's kind of rough, because you need some sleep. You need sleep to be able to do this stuff. And there was a couple days where I was staying up really late, and I still had to get up early in the morning, and then work all day, not doing my anki cards until later in the day, and it just kind of snowballs. So I've been struggling with that a little bit, but I think things are starting to match up a little bit. I think I'm doing pretty well. The starter guide that I mentioned, that was a huge deal. I'd never shot a video like that before. So for one, I had to set up everything, the camera, and fix some lights and stuff, which I've been trying to improve a little bit, just to improve the quality of my videos. But I also had to put together kind of an outline of all the points that I wanted to cover, like all of the individual items that I wanted to put in there. And then once I gathered all of that, then I started making a rough outline of the order that I wanted to put everything in, and how I wanted to group things in. Then after that, I started writing kind of a script so that I could figure out what I would say that was too much, too little, and all of this thought put into it. And I could have gone more, but I think that it would have been diminishing returns, because it's my first curated kind of instructional video. And there are also things like being a little stiff on camera. I'm not used to being on camera, not really. So, and also it's a little bit different. Like when I come in, and do this, I'm well rested, and I'm talking about something that I know what I'm going to be talking about, because it's just mundane stuff that I've been dealing with. But there's this kind of pressure with this video that I made where I wanted to make everything right, and I wanted everything to be organized in a way that was helpful, and I wanted to, you know, I didn't want to miss stuff. I didn't want to be too much. And also, so I was trying to kind of not read it, but also read sort of the script, like read it, gaze over it, and then deliver. And I don't know, it's tough. It's not an easy thing to do, and I have a lot of respect for people who do it now. But maybe I'll get better at that. So yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about how my life kind of, my habits of listening in general changed when I started listening to K-pop a couple of years ago. And it's sort of funny now, looking at it from now, it feels like it was a setup for MIA. Because before I started listening to K-pop, I was always into some real obscure indie stuff and like weird electronic stuff from Europe, crazy experimental things. I don't know if any of you music weirdos out there have heard of Wire magazine out of the UK. It's all avant-garde, experimental, crazy stuff. And that's kind of my, like, this really got me going. That was my jam. Anything that you'd find in a magazine like that, you know, stuff that doesn't even have a website. You can't find it on streaming services. Anyway, I'm going on too much about that. I would always listen to either like albums from start to finish, and then I would listen to something else. You know, I was never repeating the same thing over and over again. That's the main point, the main takeaway. I wasn't repeating stuff. So when I started listening to K-pop, something switched. I had so much fun listening to it, and I didn't have an issue listening to it multiple times in a small time period. And I had never experienced that before, except for with a couple of metal bands, and when I was in a metal band in high school, there was a few of those but it was also, I would also sprinkle everything else in between it. So now though, I've listened to some of these K-pop songs, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I still love them. So I kind of developed this attitude that I was okay. I realized I could be okay listening to stuff over and over again, and bringing that up to the MIA stuff. I listen to the same shows. There's been a handful of web dramas that I listen to almost every single day at work, and I've listened to one of them probably 40 times. It's only a 3-hour web drama. I've listened to it like 40 times. A couple of others I've listened to dozens of times. It's okay. I'm like okay with it. You know, I just sit back and enjoy it, because, you know, it's not really about the content as much, though I've grown to love the content. It's one of those things where I'm open to liking it, and then I end up being completely fine with it. You know, it's not something I would watch in English, this like high school romance, you know, and relationship drama stuff with a bit of humor in there. It's pretty boring content compared to what I'm used to. But I've grown to love it. It's all about the words for me, you know? So I've also, speaking of indie music and obscure music and stuff, this isn't that obscure, but I got my first Korean record from a group called Midair Thief, or, you know, there's that. I'm not even gonna read it. I don't do output. But yeah, it's like a indie, slightly experimental kind of lo-fi vibe, with some kind of polished production tricks in there. It's good stuff. Midair Thief album is pretty good. I like it. So yeah, I've been continuing, doing lots of listening. I've been trying to get through more dramas and shows. And I'm now at the point where when I'm listening to a lot of drama, I can understand a lot of, not understand, but I can, the words are intelligible to me. I can parse out the syllables and individual words so much easier. My grammar has gotten a little funky now that I'm listening to more Korean. It's not that I'm forgetting how to speak English, but I'm literally getting more Korean input, and I think that there's some if I'm not focusing very much, I start mixing up my word order a little bit, and then I snap out of it because I speak English. But yeah, the sentences are more intelligible, which makes sentence mining a little bit easier, because as I'm listening to something, if I hear a sentence, I can go, okay, well, yeah, I understood all of that except for that one word. So part of that, my vocab has grown, and part of that is that I'm getting better at listening. When people speak, I still have trouble with slurring and kind of mashing words together, but if it's spoken clearly, and even if it's kind of half clearly, I get a lot of it. So if I understand the words, that is. So it keeps happening more and more every day. I'm hearing new stuff going, oh yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. I mean, I knew the word, but that's the first time I've heard it. And once you pick that word out once, it sticks. It's good. So that brings me now to the sort of change and shift in my approach to adding vocab. So I was getting to the point with Evita's deck that is based loosely on the 5-star rating of frequency in a dictionary. So it's and then just kind of organized by his whims, I guess. And it's not the most optimal path, but it has a lot of common words in the first 500 or so. It's a 5,000 word deck, and now that I hit about 500 words, I started to be all over the place with how common I figured I would hear words. I would just hear stuff I would see stuff in the deck that's just like, why is this coming up at 550? This should be around 2,000 or something. So it's a little it was getting a little frustrating. I have let about 10% of the cards I learned from Evita's decks leech. So something like 70-80 cards, 60 cards, so about 50 were from the Evita's deck, and then some of them were from making my own. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of there's a lot of failing cards. And on some days that was partially my fault. I made it worse by not getting enough sleep, or not giving enough attention to the cards before I put them in the deck, before I moved them to my repping deck. But anyway, it's like it's not the most optimal. So we've been on the Discord. Some other people have been working on parsing a list. I helped get the subs from a bunch of dramas, top 100 Viki dramas, so that we could make a file that was get a frequency list of all of those words. And there's a bunch of like technical stuff with Python and programming that is way over my head, but it, you know, parses out the individual root words and stuff to make an accurate parsing list, or a frequency list. And the list so far is excellent. It's so good. It's so much more helpful than the Evita deck because it's based on the material that we're actually immersing in. You know, beginners, that dramas are basically what you're going to be immersing in. Aside from like niche content, like I like cooking shows on occasion. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. But I started using Morphman because some, you know, the same people were getting Morphman going, and I've kind of switched over to that like in the last few days. Actually, it was only half a week ago. Half a week. It's like, what, 5 days? And so yeah, it's Morphman is interesting. Once I got it set up and working properly and got my settings right and or, you know, did all of that, I just started going through, and it was like just low hanging fruit stuff that I kind of knew, but I wanted to make a deck, or I wanted to make a card for, and it just organizes it all automatically for you. It's amazing. The frequency deck, the Evita deck, you know, starter deck, that got me through the initial stages, but now those single word cards, they're too hard to consistently memorize. And Evita's just has stuff that starts coming up after 500 that is just useless. I mean, for that stage, it's not useless overall, but it's like there should be a somewhat logical order based on the content that you're watching of what's, you know. So I've moved over to doing Morphman. But yeah, things are going well, and you know, I'm more motivated than ever. I think things are happening at a good pace. I'm learning really quickly. Some days it feels like I'm learning nothing, but then I realize the next day that I had all of this new stuff that I had learned, you know. So it's almost all under the surface, and you just kind of discover it as you go. So I'm ready to get things even more situated, because now I'm really confident with the routine that I have and the sources, the subs to SRS decks, Morphman. My daily retention started going up when I started dropping the Evita single card words, and so then I can adjust my settings a little bit and extend out my intervals, I think, and that will help reduce anki time a little bit and just be a little bit less intrusive. And yeah, you know, I'm ready to, you know, dive back in. Like I said, I'm ready to dive back into my routine and make sure that I'm going to bed early so that I can actually wake up and rep early and then get some content in. And that's just gonna, I think that's gonna help my day go by much more smoothly. I'll be happy about the early work that I put in. And so, you know, that brings me to the final thing that I want to bring up, and that's like this idea of systems versus goals. And I read once that from somebody that goals are for losers. And essentially that it's systems are where it's at. So a goal is something that you set up that's in the future. It's essentially you know, something that is unattainable right now, but you might eventually want to achieve. So you wake up every day and you fail at reaching that goal every single day, over and over again. And that's sort of the difference between systems and goals. A system is something that you set yourself up to increase your chances of success in the future, increase your odds of success. And And so that's something you can achieve and accomplish every single day. And what that allows for you to do is to be more flexible as things go, and as you learn and as you acquire information. You are because you're thinking of it as a system, you're what's going to increase your chances of success and increase your odds of success, however you define that, is going to change the more you know. So if you start off without knowing anything about Korean and go, I want to reach topic 6 or whatever it is and move to Korea, and then you just hyper focus on that, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. You know, it'd kind of suck if you didn't, if that was your goal, if that was your whole motivating factor the entire time. But if you set yourself up and go, okay, I am going to study a little grammar, you know, that's why I like the MIA approach. It fits with this perfectly. I'm going to study a little grammar, I'm going to add a little vocab, and I'm going to watch as much Korean content as I can possibly stand today. That's my goal, and I accomplished that. And that increases my chances of success tomorrow and down the road. Like it increases the likelihood that I will be successful because I have a sort of vague idea of what success means, and I will just be in a position to take up any new prospects or you know, change my strategy. I can change my routine if that's something that, you know, if it doesn't fit with the old stuff. So anyway, that's the basic idea. Systems versus goals, you know, and for me, a system, you know, works is to pick something and do it every day. And even if that means just for like 1 minute, you know, you go through the motions, you go through that, you know, it's the idea of like, if you're not feeling like going to the gym, don't skip it. Just put on your gym shorts, put on your tennis shoes, and just, I don't know, sit around. And just going through that routine, starting that routine, your mind wants to finish that routine if it's something that you do. So even if that's all you do is put on your gym clothes, you go, okay, well, I'm really not feeling it this day, but at least I got some way down that path, you know, and you initiated that, and that helps carry the momentum over. So getting the sleep, going to bed early, meditating, exercising, and doing all of the waking up early and immersing, that's a system that is guaranteeing my success sometime in the future, and I'll be able to adapt to that hopefully. And as my life progresses, I will figure out a better way to stack all my skills together and you know, find some use for this. Right now I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying the process of making myself better and improving and learning more about the world and myself. So things are a little tough sometimes, but it's all pretty good. So I think that's going to wrap it up for me. I'm trying to keep this one a little bit shorter and a little bit more information dense. And you know, I'm trying to be a little bit more comfortable on camera, so we'll see how it works out. But thanks for joining me for my 2-week update or 2-month update, and I'll probably make another one for 3 months. So cheers.